Common parameters. Commandlets include common parameters. Common parameters are a short list of parameters that are considered universally useful. You can add these automatically to your scripts or functions by putting the commandlet binding statement at the start of your script, or function if you want it in a function. You can also get them by putting the advanced parameter attribute lists on at least one parameter inside your script or function. To add this, the first line of your script should be commandlet binding inside square brackets, or, as has been mentioned, by adding an advanced parameter list with at least one parameter in it to at least one parameter in your script. If your script has no parameters but you want the common ones, you would use commandlet binding. If you have parameters, you would likely just use at least one advanced parameter attribute on one parameter or more. Either one will do. And now when we run this, it will behave as it did before. In our case, we have a simple single parameter called path, and the value for it is printed out when we run the function. But it supports now the extra parameters. The list on the slide is not a complete list, but does include a number of the parameters that are commonly used for this. The verbose parameter allows you to have various data printed or information printed from your script to give the user a better idea of what's actually going on in the script. You do that by running the script with the -verbose option. When you do this, it sets the verbose preference variable inside the script where the option is being recognized, which lets you use the write verbose command to print out something. This thing you're going to print will only print when the verbose option is specified. In our case, printing out the value of path might be considered verbose output. It may not be relevant to whatever work my function is going to do, and we only want to see it if we want verbose output. So that would be an example of having something print only when the verbose option is specified. If it is not specified, write verbose is a null statement. It does nothing. If it is specified, it will print out the verbose output in colored text to draw your attention to it, and it will also label it as verbose output. There is also a debug output available. It works with write debug, and the difference between the two of these, aside from the confirmation, is that write debug is intended for programmers, people who are writing the scripts and looking to see whether or not it is working correctly. So verbose will give a user more information about what is going on. Debug will give a programmer more information and ask them if they want to continue or whether they can already recognize that things have gone wrong. If you say yes, it keeps going. When there is an error or problem in your script, we normally get an error message printed out. To get an error message printed out, your script can self-generate them with the write error commandlet. When we do a write error and give it text to print, it creates an error object which gets added to the $error array, and the output gets printed on the screen in big red letters so that the user knows there's something going wrong. There are there are parameters that control this action. There is an error action and an error variable parameter. The error action parameter tells PowerShell what to do when it does encounter an error. Error action, by default, prints out the error and keeps going. Error action can be set to not print the error and keep going. Error action can be set to print the error and process the next command in the script. Error action by default is set obviously to display it and tack it onto the error variable. The default error variable $error contains a list of all of the errors that your session has had. If the errors from your script should not be put onto that variable but placed in another one so that you can keep them separate, you can set that with the -error variable parameter and specify the name of a different variable to use. There are warning actions and variables, and there are information action and variables. There is also an out variable, which you can use to control where output goes, instead of it coming out on your screen. Two other very interesting common parameters are the what if and confirm parameters. When you run a commandlet with the what if parameter, it is supposed to tell you what it would be doing if it were making system changes without actually making them. If you run with the confirm parameter, when a command is running with the confirm parameter that would make a system change, it will tell you what the change would be and ask you if you want to do it or whether you want to cancel that. So these can be used to control how commands work, all sorts of commands, and you can implement these inside your own scripts. Usually the most useful is implementing verbose and debug, or handling errors or warnings in a more useful way.